Okay.
Good afternoon. If I can have everyone take a seat, we will get started.
Hey, bud. We'll see you later. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I didn't get to talk to you guys.
You understand?
Okay. Michelle.
First of all, I'd like to say welcome home. The dictionary defines the word home as the place where you live or where you feel you belong. It's heartwarming to see all of you who have come home to Union Park United Methodist Church.
Thanks,
a
Warren.
place where you feel you belong. Whether your ties to Union Park are long-standing or new, you have felt a connection to this church, and we're so glad that you have come to celebrate 150 years with us today. We hope that you've had a chance to reconnect with old friends, to share memories, and to wander around the church building to bring back even more memories. We are pleased to have with us today 7 of our former pastors who have served our congregation. In just a minute, those pastors will be given a time to speak about their time with us. When they are finished, we will bless and lock the time capsule. So if you brought something for the time capsule, this would be a time to get it. The quilted wall hangings will be recognized and the Sesquicentennial book will be presented. At the end of our program this afternoon, we welcome anyone who wishes to share a memory of their time at Union Park to do so. Once again, thank you for coming to share this momentous occasion with us today. Please enjoy the rest of the program. So we are going to start with Reverend Gordon Packard. I put him on the spot. He didn't know he was first.
I can't sit down and do this. It's a joy for Karen and myself to be back here. I was looking at that group of clergy of which I'm a part today, and one of the first things that came to my mind is I think I'm the eldest of them.
By far.
But then again, when I look at that group covers an awfully large portion of the last 50 years of the history of this church. Tony Nestor, if I'm not mistaken, was here 45 years ago. Is that right? And I was here from 1989 till 94. I've been retired now for 31 years. Karen and I just celebrated our 70th wedding anniversary last June. So, trying to think of specifically my years here, they were years of a lot of change for us, and also for the change of this church and the community about it. It's hard to realize how those changes take place. We really don't see them at the time. The vitality of this congregation at the time we were here was exciting. The city of Des Moines, which I had never wanted to serve in, was, of course, the capital of the state of Iowa. But I found Des Moines an exciting place to be also. And the acceptance of this congregation to us. Now, those of you who have never been clergy do not know how congregations accept clergy. It's the clergy members that are here that know how we got accepted and loved and cared about. It's a change for the congregation as they get a new pastor. They wonder what this is going to be. But it's a change for a pastor and his family also. And we wonder, what are they going to be? This congregation was an accepting congregation. And that's important to each of we clergy who have moved about in our ministries, as we have experienced the acceptance and the inclusion by various congregations. This one was a good one. And as we left it in our retirement, because that's the year I retired, they sent us forth with their love, and they have continued to love and care about us as we have of them. So this has been a great occasion for us today to see the clergy who followed me, to see the people who are still here, and to think again of the memories and the responses and the support that all of you have given us. And we give you great thanks for the time of service, and we thank you very much at the bottom of our hearts for the continued love you've shared with us in the many times that we have visited since retiring. Thank you.
And going down the line, we have Reverend Lee Webb.
I thought we'd go in chronological order, but we're not. I'm not as old. So I was here as your pastoral partner, I would call it, from 2006 to 2018. And when I got here in 2006, the inclusion part and the acceptance part, we were invited out and got to know folks in this community, in this church, more in 6 months than we were in 5 years in the previous appointment, which made a tremendous impact for my family, Kathy and I. So that's kind of what you were talking about. And one of the things that I was excited about was learning the history of this congregation on wanting to do ministry and mission and your involvement in your community. And so it wasn't too long after we got here that we did some revisioning things. Martha Hill was one of the ones who came in and helped us figure out some things, and we would take walks around the community and see, put ourselves in the position of people in the neighborhood and asking questions about, well, what do they see us as a church to be about? One of the things we found out is if you're walking down from that direction, we look like a dorm from Grandview. So we thought, well, we better identify some things out here. And then one of the most poignant questions that she had us ask was, other than church members, who in our community would miss us if we weren't here? Who in the community, other than church members, would miss us if we weren't here? And so we started working with that premise and wondering about how we could minister to make sure that the community and those around us would miss us if we weren't. And then I discovered back in the 1990s that there was another visioning process that was done. I think Don Mendenhall was a part of that one, and maybe Inez Dawes, some of you folks might remember names like that, helped with that. And some of the things that we had listed as hopes and dreams with our visionings that we did in 2006, 7, and so forth were some of the same visions and hopes that were done in the 1990s, such as an after-school program or outreach in different ways, different community events that we could be involved in, English as a second language or GED classes. And that started a process of this congregation rolling up your sleeves and working toward those goals. And we partnered with other organizations, and we started the niche that the Des Moines Public Schools provided for us by having an early out on Wednesdays, provided a niche for us to be able to create and sustain for many years a wonderful after-school program. And then to see over the years and to continue to watch from a distance after 2018 what you still do and continue to, and how you change and how you engage is wonderful. So Caesar said I ought to share this. I wore this stole today because it has special meaning. In 2009, it says, "To Reverend Lee Webb, Up Kids in Sunday School." So the kids in Up Kids in Sunday School created this stole. It's an Easter stole with the resurrection butterflies on it. And yeah, and anyway, and I asked Spencer if he remembered which one he did, and he couldn't remember. But for many years afterwards, kids would come up to me and they'd point to this. I did that one, or I did that one. Shirley did.
I recognize that one, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, had to put the cross on it. So anyway, it's not just a stole, but it represents the people involved and the kids involved. And I was going back inside and looking at, in the sanctuary, at the memory boards. And from 2006 to 2018, there's almost 90 names up there. Tremendous difference. And they just aren't names. You start thinking about who those names are and the impact that they had on others within this congregation and within the community. That exemplifies and illustrates what the bishop was talking about, and the planting and the watering, and we're all involved in that, and they were too. And will continue to be. Thank you.
It's dangerous giving ministers a microphone.
It is.
You knew that.
Okay, so I'm gonna stand right here and.
Okay, well, mine's really brief because I was only here for 5 months. But I figured out that 150 years is 1,800 months. So I was here for 5 of the 1,800 months that this place has been in existence. That's 0.002%. So that's just a splash in time. But during that splash, it was great to get to know all of you and build relationships and to be in ministry. It's amazing how in such a short period of time you really can, if you put your mind to it, you really can build relationships and have them for life. So Patty and I both appreciate you receiving us and sending us away in a hurry. And I appreciate Pastor Caesar David for what he's done and how he came in here and has done just a great job. It was fun to have him follow me. So thanks.
And next we have Reverend Jim Luke.
My, how fast the years go. Back in 2003, I retired, and I'm still standing. It wasn't but a few days after my retirement, I got a call from David Stout at that time district superintendent, and he wondered if I would be willing to come and be appointed to the Union Park Church. Well, I thought I was done. I retired, you know, if you want to go sit on a chair. But when my wife and I talked about it, Lynn and I decided we're going to go. We did go. And even though it wasn't a lot of years as such, some very significant things happened during that time that I want to share. Yet with 40 plus years experience, there's a couple things I learned over the years. The first thing is that true religion true religion teaches us not how to win friends, but how to be a friend. So important in the life of the church, in the life of the community. And that was kind of the kickoff. So what I attempted to do at this point was to work with servant love. A couple memories that I was asked to share. We could go on all afternoon, but I'll spare you that. The first memory was the work of Methodist men. Now, I've been in a lot of churches over the years, big, small, whatever. But when I came here at this point, I don't remember the number, but there were several United Methodist men that were going down to Bidwell Riverside every week. They worked. And they worked. And they worked. But they had fun. They enjoyed what they were doing. They were changing lives, changing that facility. They had a ministry all by themselves. It was quite important, and it affected this whole state. Bidwell Riverside was one of our very significant mission spots. The second memory was not hard to come up with. It was the choir. During the time that I was here, we got a new choir director, Virginia Crossgreen. Virginia was a teacher at Simpson College. In fact, her parents live where we live now, at Wesley on Grand, as such. Virginia was a professional singer. When I had the opportunity to interview her, her credentials were more than an inch thick. She was extremely qualified. But that's not what she wanted to do. She wanted to teach. And she was willing to take on the choir. That during that time, that choir, they already had some good voices in that choir. She did a little work, and that choir became very important in its ministry to this church and to others. So between United Methodist Men and music ministry, those are two very, very special memories. But what I also learned over the years that was happening in the Methodist Men and in the choir, but also in the kitchen. You folks haven't changed learning how to cook in that respect. But what I learned was that servant love will turn the world upside down. It's talked about quite a bit in Scripture. And I think it's important for us to remember at this point that it was service love that kept this church moving along, affecting the community as well. Early on, we had children in the park. We cooperated with other churches and had special services. And I could go on, but I'm not going to take that much time. But the life shape of being a servant, which this church modeled, is the very shape of God's own Son, whom we worship every week. And that Son has motivated us to be a church for Jesus Christ and for the world. My wife and I have always enjoyed our time here. I was retired, I was ready to quit, but then I still haven't quit because I'm still working at Wesley Acres. But ministry it can be not only delightful, but very meaningful when Christians gather together and share their faith. Thank you for having us.
Next is Reverend Cliff Hyder.
Right here.
As I look around, I don't see a lot of people that I knew for the 6 months I served here. In 2002, Dave Stout asked me if I would be willing to accept a church for an interim. And I would have to start in January, and then I'd be done in June. And Jim followed me. The only problem was I was working 28 hours a week at Hamilton's funeral home. And you had a Saturday night service that started at 6 o'clock. And I said to Dave, I said, it's impossible, you better count me out, because I have to lock Hamilton's up. I'm the last person out on Saturday night. I have to set the alarm off, and I can't leave until 6 o'clock, because that's when the phone rolls over to Pennsylvania. And if I leave before, there's nobody there to answer the phone, and it goes to the president of the company. So I said if they could move church service to 6:30, I'd be willing. And so he came back a week later and said he'd talk to the church. They would move to the Saturday night service to 6:30, and then the regular service on Sunday morning. You'd gone through a difficult time when I came in. And on my first Sunday sermon, those that are here that were probably at my first sermon will remember, I started preaching. I got about through my first point of a 3-point sermon, and I felt this was the coldest congregation that I'd ever been in. Does anyone remember what I asked you to do at that time? I asked you to stand up. I had to ask you 4 times before you stood up. And then I said, I want you to move around the congregation and give somebody a hug that you have not talked to or hugged in months. And the congregation began to move around. And finally, after 10 minutes, I said, would you now sit down? And I finished my sermon. And on the way out, I said to everybody, every congregation I've served, I have asked for hugs, and I've asked people to hug each other. And I said, I love hugs. And people came out the door giving me hugs, and they even moved around hugging other people before they came out. And they asked me, can we do this after every service? And we began. And when I left at the end of 6 months, this congregation had moved from one that wouldn't listen to each other. They didn't care who you were, and even friends had become friends once again, and they began to listen to each other. And they always asked, can we have hugs at the end of the service? I don't know whether you do that anymore, but with COVID that changed. But I spent 6 months here. It was a wonderful time, and I really enjoyed it. And the congregation, I felt, it was a congregation that would listen to each other and try to understand what the other person was saying. There's great love here. And I'm sure that love has continued to grow over all these times. I'm retired now for the third time. And I live in Rochester, Minnesota. Thank you.
Reverend Tony Nestor.
I'm going to make this very brief because we're already over schedule. I had a list of memories and it was very long. So this was the revised short list, but now it's going to get even shorter. But I spent a lot of time in this room when I was here. So many memories, so many wonderful people that were part of the time that Evelyn and I were here, and my children. When the first thing we saw when we drove here from out of town to see where we were going, we thought the parsonage was the church. We drove up on the corner and there was a big sign in front of the parsonage that said church. And then there was this strange word that was right out there in the parking lot, a huge Valcomen sign. I had no clue what Valcomen was. And then I had been told, of course, that I was going to a church that was Swedish Methodist church, and of course I thought, why is the bishop sending an Italian to a Methodist church? I had no clue about that. But here I was, and I wondered how it was going to go. But like other pastors here that have already said, we found a very warm, gracious, genuine acceptance of us, and that meant so much. That meant a lot because I knew your history. One day I found the old archives of the church and old records of some of the first council meetings of the church. And I started reading them, and I found there were several council meetings that recorded members of the council standing up and criticizing other church members by name who were allowing their children to date non-Swedish people. And I thought, wow, and here I am. This church was marvelous to us. One of the ways that God expressed, of course, you know, we had the Swedish smorgasbord. You just had one again, and my wife Sandy and I were here for that. But then it was every year. But then you had an Italian dinner too. You did the Cavatelli dinner, and I wish I could remember his name, but one of your really great Swedish members.
Ray Morris.
Well, it wasn't Ray. It was another wonderful guy, kind of a little stiff. He could be caustic, but he would always come in with a little brown paper bag. And in that brown paper bag, because he knew I was Italian, and we were having an Italian meal, he would smuggle in a little jar with wine for me to have with my Italian meal here at the church. That was the kind of church it was. I remember we had these council meetings in here, and I was just telling Harlan again, I remember they would get heated and people would be very agitated sometimes. And I remember sitting in my office not knowing quite what to do with these people, and the same guy, I wish I could remember his name, he came in and knocked on my door to talk to me in my study, and I was a pretty young pastor then, it was a long time ago, and he just said to me, he said, Pastor Tony, you need to understand, we like to fight. Don't worry about it. We like to fight. But that was the energy that was here in the congregation. And on my 40th birthday in this room, the congregation here had it all decorated with black balloons, and they gave me a wonderful, wonderful 40th birthday party, right, Judy? And a wonderful gift that sent me and my family off on a wonderful vacation. It meant so much. I miss the worship services we had. We had some great worship moments. I miss that 11 o'clock Christmas Eve service at 11 o'clock at night. And the magical feeling, it was worshipful, it wasn't magic in that sense, but it was magic in the sense that it was transcendent, with deep feeling, and we had just tremendous times together. Just one other memory from worship. One year we commissioned a chalice for communion, and said that at the beginning, we got that chalice like in November or something, and when we started with Advent, we said, we're going to record. Back then everybody signed in when they came to worship. We'll record every time we have communion and who took communion from this cup. And at the end of the year, we published that list of people who had all shared communion from that same cup. I miss the worship time that we had together. One other short memory, I wish Evelyn could be here. It's been about 5 years since she died, and I'm now married to my lovely wife, Sandy. But we had a youth group, and we wanted to do something for them on Sunday mornings, and there really wasn't a good place to meet, and Evelyn took it upon herself to have the high school Sunday school class meet in the parsonage around our kitchen table. And so on Sunday mornings, while I was busy running around doing things here, Evelyn would host a table full of high school kids for Sunday school in the parsonage at the kitchen table. 3 of the boys, including one of whom was my son, who were in that high school class, 3 of them have ended up in ministry. And I have fond memories of watching the kids coming over and being part of that time there. And I was talking to Harlan again today about the mission trip that started more mission trips from this church. And we got together with a group of you. We went down to Jamaica on a mission trip, and Harlan was remembering how he would take me out in the morning outside in the lawn and grab a bucket of water and dump it over my head because we couldn't take a bath or a shower inside. And we would take turns dumping buckets of water on each other to try to get clean down there in Jamaica. And I was always interested after I left to see the other mission trips that went on from this congregation. I'm sorry, Harlan?
Tell them about the bed.
Well, I'm not going to talk about sleeping in the bed with you, no. I'm not going to talk about that. So just thank you. It was a wonderful number of years that I had with you, and there's a lot more I could say, but that's enough for now.
And not last, but last, Reverend Bernie Colorado.
We came to Des Moines from Marathon, and we came to Des Moines to Union Park, United Methodist Church in July 1994, and we served this church until June 30, 2000. My wife, Linda, and my 3 children, Neil, Lillian, and Dale. We all came together and we served this church together. They were involved quickly in many activities. Neil in choir, of course Linda with the Sunday school and youth, aside from being with the pastor during pastoral visitation. And Lillian was also involved in children's time. Okay, also Neil, Linda of course, and me once a month. And there are some other leaders who also did the children's time, including Margaret Priep. She also did children's time. Well, there were 3 retired pastors in the congregation during my time. Reverend Bob McBlain, Reverend Bill Rakoff, and my father, Reverend Isaac Colorado. They were wonderful, they were supportive, and they gave lots of advice. Reverend McBlain always come to me and said, Bernie, do the Methodist way. Okay, I said, like what? Don't say verse, you say stanza. Okay, I didn't know that is the Methodist way, but I will do that. Worship. There were 3 worship services, and one was included during my time, the Saturday worship. How did that happen? When I was introduced to this PRC said, we really would like to have a Saturday worship. And Lynette was the chairperson that time. And that was in my mind, and it did not last long, and it was started. And you know what? It lasted for years. I thought when I'm gone, it will also be gone, but no, it carried on for many years. 8 o'clock service, what I remember there is Bob and Ruth Savage, those, and Shirley, of course, they also attend that service. Ruth Savage, when she comes, would always say, Pastor, where is the menu? What menu? The bulletin. So every time she comes, she would ask, Pastor, where's the menu? In the 10 o'clock service, is it 10 o'clock? 10:30. Anyway, that's the main service. I thought what is unique in the main service is the music. We had Charles with his powerful playing of the organ, and we had the choir and the Donna Emmons. Yes. And once in a while the quartet. They really provided music. I think some of the people come just to have a special music, listen to special music from the church. Of course, like what I said, there were children's time. There were many kids. And then, how about Sunday school? Sunday school, okay. The 3rd floor filled with kids. The basement filled with adults in their own Sunday school classes. It was good to be pastor of a church with so many people in the Sunday school. There were many groups as well, meeting not only Sunday but also weekdays. I don't remember anymore the names of the groups. There's Welcome Men, the Sunshine. I think the Sunshine are the seniors, very senior. There was also this prayer group which I led, and we moved from one house to another. Elmer Adrian is always present there, also Lester the Ark, and we moved from one house to another. Yeah. Youth. I think during my time we had really outstanding youth group. Dana, where are you? Dana? Leaders of the group of the youth. Dana Clement, yes. The group really drove. We had the junior youth, senior youth, and then we thought we should have, at the time, have a youth director. So it was during my time that we hired full-time youth director. I forgot already the name of the first director. Does anybody remember? No. Okay. Well, if I don't remember, how can you remember? And then after him, we had Jeff Codis as director. Okay. And then I think after Jeff Codis, probably you hired Brian Oliver. Yes. And then I think after Brian Oliver, you also hired my son, Neil. So that is because you wanted special ministry for these young people. If you don't know, Jeff Codis became a pastor. Brian Oliver became a pastor as well. And in fact, Brian Oliver is now a district superintendent in the Southeast District. Yes. Okay. I have some what I call God's sense of humor thing. A little bit funny, but sometimes a difficult experience. So let me share some of them to you. Let's start with the smorgasbord. We had smorgasbord here, I think sometime October, right? And my duty was to entertain those who are waiting to be fed in the sanctuary. So I tell them some jokes, stories, something about myself. They were captive audience. They had to go through me before coming here for the food, smorgasbord. And then one of them approached me. I said, Bernie, it looks like you're the only one now with accent here. Remember, it's a Swedish church. Okay? I know what he was talking about. He was referring to the Swedish accent. Another example, or another experience is this. My father was a member here when I was pastor. And after the announcement, he will raise his hand. Well, he raised his hand one time and said, okay. Then went to the front. I'm going to sing. I want to praise the Lord. So he started singing, a little bit out of tune. But then the congregation clapped so loud. After when we had time together, I said, you were out of tune. No, they applauded, they like it, they want more. No. The second time he raised his hand again after the announcement. And then I recognized him, but I was worried. He was going to sing again. But this time he said, my friend Lawrence Bergenholz and I are going to play our harmonica. And they did. It was beautiful. When my first Sunday here, it was, I thought, a beautiful service. To me, it was very good. And I think many thought it was good also. So I was happy. The following day I was handed an envelope. Probably it was put in the offering plate. And then I opened it. It was an unsigned letter. And it says, you don't deserve to be pastor here. I cried in my office. Then I prayed to the Lord, Lord, you sent me here. You've got to fix this. You've got to help me. And somehow what I heard was, it did not happen. So I did not share it to my wife, nor share this PRC. I kept it to myself. After 6 years, I asked to be moved. And you know what? The district superintendent, Reverend David Stout, received so many letters from you, asking him, please let Bernie stay. Let Bernie stay. I was waiting for the DS to say if he received an unsigned letter. Of course, no one will send a letter which, if it is about requesting to be retained. Last story. Of course, that's God's sense of humor, okay? The last story I want to share is this. The janitor. Oh, he really made this floor so shiny. Remember that? It's shiny. It's his mission to make it shiny. And when kids walk through it, he yelled at them. Oh my goodness. One day it was so shiny and I walked through it, he also yelled at me. I was just done with that. Oh, I'm sorry that I have to go through here to get to the bathroom. I don't know, a year later, asked me to conduct the service of his wife, the funeral service. And it looked like he didn't remember what he did to me. Well, my friends, to me, every journey, every appointment is a journey forward. Journey forward. Even in the Philippines, when I was serving there, it's a journey forward. From one church to the next, it's forward. Then from the Philippines, I became missionary to England. It's a movement forward. From England, I came to Iowa. First in Marathon, and then here. Then from here, Sioux City, St. James, Sioux City. After 6 years there, I became district superintendent. Then after my term, 6 years, I was appointed to Clear Lake United Methodist Church. I retired there. After 1 month, the district superintendent said, "Can you help us? Maple Grove needs a pastor. Just a small church, just quarter time." And I said yes. And that is Link Grove. Then 3 years after that, I became Maple Grove in West Des Moines. And then after Maple Grove, I became part-time pastor of Link Grove, and I'm still serving up to now. It's movement forward, and it's good. Well, it's a long story. Yeah, brilliant.
Bernie, I want you to remember one thing that we remember. You preached about winners, and you called us all wieners.
Oh. Yeah, I know. You don't remember anymore. That's one of those things the Holy Spirit said did not happen. It did not happen. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. You were supportive. You're very kind. And by the way, my children, you love them, and we will not, and we cannot forget you. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, we just have a few more things this afternoon. I'm going to give Pastor Caesar David a minute to introduce himself in case you have not met him.
Can I say something, please? Bernie, there's a song that always comes to my mind, which I think we all should sing. This is the day that the Lord has made, that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. Thank you.
Chris did say just 1 minute. And when she asked me, do you want to, I was not scheduled to speak, but when she asked me, like, do you want to speak? I said, sure, 1 minute, just to give you thanks. She doesn't know what's going on in my mind, and the pastors here will know, I didn't get to preach today, right? So, you know how I feel. It's right. But let me just take a minute to acknowledge the graciousness of this beautiful congregation. And we kind of, like, I'll let you in on a little secret. Sumi and I, one of our songs, you know, the loving, romantic kind of song is by Smokey. It's called Stumbling In. And some of you will know that. They kind of just stumbled in. And in a way, when I'm thinking about my spiritual journey and my ministry journey, we kind of stumbled in on this church. And it's been such a great journey to be accepted in this way, to be supported, to feel your love, not only for myself as your minister, but for us as a family, to be kind of completely absorbed in your such a foreign culture. You can understand me coming from Asia, from India, from a very different part of the world where we do things, everything so differently in the manner of our speaking. You'll know that we in India, like, we're kind of caught between the British English and the American English, and so there's that constant effort at code switching that's going on that you can feel the effects of, unfortunately. But you have been so gracious and accepting. So I just wanted to say on behalf of my family, thank you so much. And I've got another thing to say to all the pastors. It's been such a wonderful day for us to be together here. And I just want to be able to say today, on behalf of the congregation, to all the pastors gathered here, thank you so much for all your sacrifices, for all your your prayers and your contributions in various ways. You'll notice that everybody's got different skills and different things that they brought. The important thing to know and to acknowledge and recognize today and to applaud you for is that you brought it with the kind of passion that you will notice continues to live on in the kind of work that you started, in the hopes that you've seen, in the vision that you've seen and shared with the people here. And although things have changed, and things are changing so rapidly, you know, we're not able to do all the things that we hoped we could because of the changing situation in society, in our church, in our community. But we are all united and meet each other in that common vision and our passion for the Lord, and that love drives us on despite and beyond the strength which we sometimes feel fails us physically and otherwise. But through it all, as we look ahead, we're looking ahead, like I'm always fond of saying, we look ahead joyfully and confidently in the strength of God's leading. And praise the Lord for that. Praise the Lord for this beautiful, beautiful congregation to which I am so proud to be a part of. Thank you.
And now I'm going to ask Jack Davidson to come up as the chair of our trustees. I will say one more time, if there's anyone who brought something to put in the time capsule.
Say 6 years ago on Wednesday, we got Caesar and Cindy and Ruben. They came to us 6 years ago Wednesday.
6 years ago, nice.
And Gary and Virgil and I were at the airport to meet them. So we're glad they're still here.
Thank you. I am too.
All right.
Thank you. We are here to discuss why we're here and what our memories of the 150 years are. We are so blessed to have these quilted hangings here, and they were crafted by Warren Larson. Warren's here somewhere, I believe. Okay, there he is, back over there. We have them in a sanctuary. Here's one on the wall. We're also going to have one in the time capsule. So it's a beautiful symbol to remind us how wonderfully God has woven each of our life stories connected with our church, and each aspect of the ministry to yield a beautiful picture, belonging, unity, and love. And these will survive for a long time. They're beautiful. Thank you, Warren. The time capsule is basically a collection of artifacts. It's the things that we remember over time and that we can someday open, and we won't be here to see it open probably, but somebody will open it and pull something out of there and say, I don't know what they did with that. It's basically mementos and things that meant so much to our congregation. It's a collection of artifacts. It's a bridge between generations, a tangible connection between the past, the present, and the future of our congregation. As we close the capsule, we are not just sealing memories, we are preserving stories of hope, perseverance, and faith. Within it are symbols of our journey, prayers prayed to joy and sorrow, ministries that touch lives, and dreams we dared to dream as people of God. These items tell the story of a congregation that has stood as a beacon of light in this community for 150 years. May this act inspire future generations to continue the mission of God, to build on our foundation laid by so many faithful saints before us. And we trust in God, who has been our guide through this every season. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. For the greater glory of God and to the blessing of the generations to come. Amen.
Who gets the key?
I don't know that.
Raise your hand if you'll be here in 50 years, and you are the keeper of the key. All right, we have a volunteer. So we just have two more things that we want to do this afternoon. Hopefully most of you have seen or picked up our book. And so this is, hopefully I can get through this. This is my dedication for the book. Creating this edition of the history book for Union Park was truly a labor of love. My dad, Francis Keith, was instrumental in writing and publishing the first 100-year celebration history book in 1974. It was with his voice in my head that I agreed to work on the second book, celebrating some of the things that have happened in the last 50 years. It is my hope that we have captured a snapshot of some of the activities and people that have been instrumental in making Union Park a viable church for the last 50 years. It is also my hope that you will enjoy reminiscing while you look through this book. So once again, this book will be placed in the time capsule. I know Jack just locked it, but I will be putting this book in there along with a copy of the first 100 years. And so if you have not checked in with Elizabeth back there, please make sure you do to get your copy. Please enjoy it. Please ignore any typos that you may find. As my daughter will tell you, the one mistake we have found is that I did not name her in a picture. I named her with someone else's name. Whoops. So we're going to take just a very few minutes. If there is someone from anyone out here who would like to say a memory to honor everyone's time, we would ask that you just take a minute or so. If there's anyone who has anything to say about remembering something from the church. And I'll start it off. For those of you who are as old as I am, you remember that we had a pop machine in the basement. It was a blue Pepsi machine that had glass bottles in it, and they cost a dime. Sometimes it was really difficult to find a dime, and so I loved it when I got to come to church, when my dad was having Boy Scouts, or when I was here for junior choir, if I could find a dime, because I could get a bottle of pop. Because we didn't really have pop at home when we were growing up. And then I had to drink it all before whoever came to get me. So there are things like that. Many of you may know that downstairs, kind of by where the old nursery was, there was a staircase that went to nowhere. And so if you grew up with Randy Nordiker and Gary Peters, they liked to stand up there. And then when you went to the nursery, they would jump out. That staircase is no longer there. I told my grandsons about it today, and no one knew what I was talking about. So any other memories? Anything else? Lisa Potter. Be thinking.
that's just one part of the pop machine. Yes, it was down there, and you'd slide the bottles out and then lift it up through the lock. Well, the kids find out that all they have to do to get that pop is to pop off the lid and put a straw in it and suck it out. So anyway, I'm now a youth director. And so I think, I'm going to teach them. They're not going to do this anymore. So I find a pop machine that's available for sale down on Indianola Road. I go down and buy it. Now this is the one where the pop lays in at an angle. So you can't pop that up. But guess what they do? They get a cup, they put it underneath the cap, pop the lid off, and fill the cup up with. So you never won, no matter what. So that's my story. And the floor was always sticky because of the pop.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Larson Lundstrom, and I'm happy to say that I love to be a part of this congregation. I was baptized here, confirmed here, married here, and come back to help a lot of times that I love to share with people. I transferred from Union Park up to Ankeny First in the mid-70s. But it was a joy to see all the people here and try to remember who they are, just like they're trying to figure out who I am. But I will say this, I don't see my brother was the one that sang the Swedish song today, and he's in the kitchen. Anyway, so he's not going to hear this, that's good. I have one up on him. But our father was a singer in the choir here. He was a beautiful tenor. And I am the oldest of 5 and the only girl. So there's 4 brothers below me. And there's 15 years between Warren and I. So don't do the math, but that's okay. But Dad always sang on Sunday mornings after his golf game early. He always had his golf game in early, then came to church. But when Dad would be singing, a couple of times this happened. Warren, we all sat in the 2nd or 3rd pew in the east side of the church, as everyone had their place. But all of a sudden, Warren got up, Dad came out because he was doing a solo of some sort, and Warren came up, and there he is, standing right next to my dad, pretending he's singing. He mouthed something, but of course he wasn't really singing. But that's the story, what I believe. And you can tell him that later, because he'll bring it back to me. But I do, just one other thing. When I was going to church here in my youth, United Methodist Youth Group, MYF, Methodist Youth Groups, would meet here on Wednesday nights, and we had wonderful times, wonderful fellowships, and lots of friendships developed from that. And I do remember the good times. We had a wonderful time, and the people were always so gracious, kind, and it's been a wonderful experience to come back and share. Thank you. I know Lisa has memories. No?
No. Here.
All right, Ginger does. More than a memory, it's a special thought. Many of you know my husband's Roman Catholic. I'm United Methodist. When we got married, our priest said, "Your kids will just think this is normal. You can be in both churches." My father said, "No, you pick." And my father also and my mother raised us to make our own decisions. So we chose to go to 2 churches. The boys did confirmation in both churches. They did Sunday school here. They grew up here. But at one point we talked heavily about choosing one church and going to one church. And this is the church my husband would not give up. So it was because of the Hope class. and because of this church that we continued going to 2 churches and still do that. So this church has been special to many families, and it is very important to my husband and myself too. So thank you for being you.
So I will share for Scott because he's not making eye contact with me. So when he was in the, oh, he'll do it now.
Better use
You'll get the story right.
Sorry, the memory just came back to me. So this red floor, I actually was under the impression that it didn't always used to be red. I was probably 5 or 6, and my mom was here doing an exercise class. And I was left to myself in what used to be some barricades back there with some tables folded up. And apparently, during that time, I fell off the stack of tables. And she came and found me after the exercise class and was very angry because I had blood all over my clothes because I had split the back of my head open. And I still have a scar on the back of my head. And then come back to church a week later, and the blood that was on the floor is now dried in a completely different color. Yeah, so I always think of that when I think of my mom and that fun memory. But
That's not what I was going to share.
what were you gonna share?
When he was in middle school, he was the only middle schooler.
Oh,
yeah, those were some pictures.
I was. I had to ride in a van on the way to a trip to Okoboji on a cooler, I think. Yeah, in between the seats. I was the only middle schooler. I had to hang out with everybody. It was much older than me, as you can tell by those pictures over there. I was like this big, and I was in like 7th grade or something. And yeah, it was a fun trip. They claim I had a lot of gas. I don't know why. I don't know why they claim that, but what else were you gonna share?
All right, anybody else? Warren. Oh, is this going to be a tackle on his sister?
It's payback time. I missed what she said. I'll find out. I was in the kitchen. But I do remember one thing about my sister and our family growing up. My sister was married here. And Reverend Hyde was our minister at the time. And wasn't he the ring bearer? Was I the ring bearer? Yes. And reverends like to talk, which is great because we love to hear their sermons, but especially Reverend Hyde. And by the time I got up to the altar area where my sister was, Reverend Hyde kept talking and talking and talking. I got tired. I sat down right next to him. We have a picture of that. But some of the things I remember most about this church growing up and being a part of our family is, of course, the wonderful smorgasbords. And the most important of all of that during Sunday school, church services, smorgasbords, is the people. And the people that we've lost all these years are people that I remember and will be a part of my life all the time.
Those of you that have been here a number of years remember the Swedish smorgasbords. Jim and I learned about them years ago because Louise Morgan, who was very influential as far as, I think, running the thing, with an iron hand, was my dad's first cousin. And so we heard a lot about Union Park. Much to our dismay, she died just a couple months before we came here for Jim to be the pastor. But when we came back for the smorgasbord this fall, it was wonderful, and the food has always been wonderful. We also remember the Saturday night service then, when it went just to a Saturday night service and a Sunday morning service while we were here, and the wonderful group of people that came on Saturday nights, and then we'd have fellowship and eat together too. And that was really wonderful.
All right, anyone else? All right, so Shirley.
Being a young mom and having a lot of kids, I had 4, children's time was precious to me. And there was one in particular time where you had a little daughter sitting by and you had a Snickers candy bar. And the lesson was about sharing. You can't believe me, I don't talk about it. Okay. The lesson was about sharing. And you stood up there in front and her sitting down there, just practically begging you for a bite. And you said, "No, it's my candy bar, and I'm not sharing." And you opened that, and you ate that whole thing. And my husband was so mad when we went home. He said, "Now, what were the children to learn from that man?" I thought sharing was when you break off a piece and share. But I've often wondered whether you got any flack from your daughter as she grew up. And how old is she, and how well is she? I hope she's still with you.
Yes, she is, and she's in Winterset, Iowa.
Good.
Well, with a family of 3.
And I hope she loves Snickers to this day. I still like a good chocolate bar.
All right, I just want to say thank you all for coming. Thank you for staying this afternoon. It has been great to see old friends, to reminisce with people. On your table, there are magnets and there are some pens. Please take one home or 2. If yours are gone off your table, you can see Karen or me, and we'll see if we have some extras left. So thank you.
Thank you and Karen.
Yes, thank you.
It was truly a labor of love for both of us. So, oh, and then I'm also told to say there is cake. So if you haven't had a piece of cake, have a piece of cake. Thank you all for coming. Oh, my photographer is Anna, who got conscripted. So hopefully we will have a slideshow of the pictures from today soon. Thank you all for coming. Have a safe trip home.